The walk in is a long one. It's been worth it. I packed for any sort of weather, and of course the moment that you put a rain jacket on, the sun comes out. So I managed to get that off. I've got lunch in the back of my vest. I've got my friend Warren with me. We're going to see if we can catch a couple of fish, talk about life, talk about fishing. It's one of those, it's been a long trek, as I said, and it's one of those places that you think in your own mind, of course it's not true, that for you, for this day, this is our little bit of river and we're going to be fishing it. I'm not going to say where it is, because what would be really cool is for you to be able to put yourself in this position and imagine the stream that you like to fish yourself. And perhaps, like I say, it involves a trek in, but it's worth it once you get there. Warren's not seen this before, so it's kind of exciting to be able to show him. The river's a small one. It's boulder strewn, and there are plunges, pockets, all sorts of interesting features. I've heard him call out a couple of times that he's had fish come up and have a look at his fly as well. So we're already off to a pretty good start. The conditions are not bad, actually. There's been a lot of rain. I'm sure where you are, you've had similar situations as well. And the river's dropping away. But it's fishable. That's the main thing. We can go fishing and go explore and just walk. And like I say, we got water, we got food, we got just about everything that we need to make it what feels like could be a really great day of fishing. It's the home of the dry fly here. I think I could probably hang a nymph off there and might catch some more fish, but I just don't really care. I'm just pleased to be up here, and I've got a new cap on as well, and I'm really superstitious about just about nothing except fishing caps. I've had a fish on that came off pretty quickly, and I had a small fish threw itself at the fly and came off. So I'm sort of getting close to dejonering this cap so that it can join the stable I have in the back of my car. I'm sure that you're exactly the same, that 2 or 3 caps that I've worn over a period of time, and I know that when I wear them I'm lucky enough to catch a few fish, so I'll stick with them. This one's still got to earn its stripes, but it's getting there. The fly that I've got on is one that I bought in Italy, and Stefano would come every morning with a box of flies that he had, and they were really interesting, innovative flies. And for pocket water and fast streams, they float nice and high. They're easy to see. And I was reminded of Sean Morris's piece. If you've read it in the latest Fly Culture, he's got a piece called The Tug is the Drug, and it's a fun piece written about you needing to get some streamers from your dealer. And I'm really reminded of that. The fly works in Italy. The fly works here in the UK as well. So I'm pretty happy. It's a little bit bigger. You'd probably look at it and think, perhaps this is a bit big for fishing small streams for smallish fish, but I was given heart by the way we were fishing in Italy with these flies for similar sized fish, sometimes a little bit bigger as well, admittedly, but the fish would still eat them and they'd still stick. And like I say, I've had one stick, and just as I was bringing it in, it came off. So it's given me that confidence to say, actually, I'm going to stick with this. I can see it really well. It floats really well. It looks great. The water's still got a little tinge of colour into it. You may hear the chatter of it in the background as well as it's dropping away. The stream's not very wide. It's 10, 12 feet wide. If I were fishing with Stefano, Paolo and Vito, I'd call it one of my shittier, smaller streams. And I mean that in the warmest sense of the word, that it's said with much love. Shitty, and by shitty I mean hard to fish, difficult to fish, but the rewards are worth it if you can get your fly in the right spot. We're just sort of leapfrogging each other at the moment and enjoying that. And I don't really shout out if I hook a fish, but I did, which Warren saw, and there's a reason for that you'll hear about a little bit later. But yeah, it's okay. The clouds come over a little bit now. There is some blue sky here. It's a really hard one to call weather-wise, what's going to happen, where we're going to be, how it's going to play out, but this is great. Let's see if I can dejoner that cat. If I do, I'll let you know all about it. I know when I'm enjoying myself. I talk to myself. I tell myself off when I miss a fish. I missed a couple, and the fly had gone downstream a little bit, and I just lifted the rod tip and danced it, and dapped it, I guess. And fish came out of nowhere, ate it, missed it. I moved another fish that I saw in a back eddy rise, and it turned out it was an absolutely tiny fish that just threw itself at the fly and didn't stick. And then I got one, I saw a break in the water, a little bubble line, and threw the fly in there, and fish took it and thankfully stuck. So the cap is officially okay. It's officially okay to wear it. I've come a long way, so I haven't got to change. So I guess it had to work anyway, and I wanted it to as well. I like it, but that's kind of nice as well. Warren's been catching some fish as well, which has been great fun. I can just see the smile. We're only fishing 30, 40 feet apart, just giving each other a couple of pulls and then seeing how we're getting on, seeing what's happened. And I saw him, I just sort of saw a little bit of a splash and said, was it? And he said, yeah, and a great big grin on his face. And they're the moments. They're just as nice as catching a fish myself. And I'm just breathing in. I'm kind of thinking about this, I guess this river valley is probably quarter of a mile wide or so, but the stream, like I say, is 15, 16 feet across at the very widest, and as you look up there's been erosion that's broken rocks, but I sort of imagined to myself how things might have been when the ice age ended and the gush of river, I must be 100 foot off the high that it must have been, and it's a pretty impressive spot to be in. I'm sitting at a rock. I'm just upstream of Warren now, and I could jump in. I can see a nice pool in front of me. There's a lovely back eddy with some scummy water. Actually, in the fast water, I've just seen a rise as well. There's a few fish starting to move, but I'm just sitting on this rock taking it in, and it's amazing how we are as people, as human beings, how things can affect us, how things can make us happy, how things can make us sad. Yet you can sometimes see and be somewhere that has a profound effect on you. And as you know, in this podcast, I've talked about where my love affair with fishing wavered just a little bit, and just for a really short space of time. But then suddenly it changes again and everything is back to normal. And I'm feeling now that at the moment I just don't need to catch a fish. I'm just enjoying this whole experience and being out, and probably you're getting the soundtrack of the river, but how good it is for us. And I know I'm just watching Warren, another fish just came off as he brought it in there, and how this has such an amazing impact on our lives in such a positive, wonderful way. I often talk about how we evolve as fly anglers, and is it the age that changes things? But I'm not sure. I think I'm just content with fishing where I sit within fishing in the sense of my ability and how I define that, how I define my enjoyment of it. And perhaps that is a sign of maturity. I don't know. I'm really not 100% sure, but I don't think I've ever been the sort of person who's needed to catch every fish in the pool. Now, don't get me wrong, there are days when you sometimes want to fill your boots, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But now I feel I'm at a stage where I just catch what I feel I want to need. I don't want to catch loads of fish from one pool. If I feel like I've had enough, that's fine by me, and I'll move on to another pool. It's always good to leave the fish. It might be for somebody else, to just leave them generally. And I think that's how I feel about fishing as a whole. I look at it not just as a catching, and catching being the mechanism that decides whether the day is a success or not. And I think that's what I'm coming to a realization. It may have taken me a long time. I don't think it has, because I've always felt this way. But I think if we think about those things, certainly from my point of view, it works incredibly well, that I enjoy fishing all the more. And it is, as I've often said on here, the company, the location, everything else that goes with it that makes those moments all that special. And it doesn't mean that my fly's got to be riding down the pool every second of that day of the fishing. And I think that's where I'm just happy. I've sat here for a while now. I've seen walkers go by, and I've not needed to cast a fly for a bit, and that's been fine. Warren's looked up at me and I've waved him through, and he's just started to get out and make his way up this way now, and that's kind of nice. So I guess we'll sit and talk for a little bit, and then somebody will decide, I'm looking in that pool, that's the third fish I've seen rising there, so there are fish in there. So yeah, it might be that we give those a go before too long. Might have proved the ultimate case in point that the fish I'd been talking about that had been rising for probably a short amount of time, they were going absolutely mad, and there were small fish just rising everywhere, half a dozen, 8 fish, all throwing themselves out of the water. It looked like black gnat they were eating, something like that anyway. And as quickly as it started, it was just like the sun had been covered by a cloud just for a few moments, and it is coming down into the pool, so the brightness of the sun is coming down into the pool, and it must have been that it just covered things over a little bit, and the fish thought, right, yeah, let's have a go, and they really went for it. And do you know what? I've not made one cast. Warren went down, had a look. I think he's risen a couple of them. They were tiny little fish, but really, really cool. I stood there and videoed some fish rising because it was just so neat to see these guys. It was just like a mini feeding frenzy. But yeah, I just didn't feel like I needed to catch them. Just seeing them rising, just seeing them go mad like that was enough, and I was perfectly happy. So I guess I can stand by what I've been saying to a degree. If we get to another pool and it's a similar sort of case, I can't guarantee it will be the same behaviour, but it was interesting. Something like that, almost an ultimate test, happens. And I bumped into some people who were walking. They looked like they were military guys, and they were going for a good long yomp. And the thing they said to me was that I got talking to them, and they said, well, what are you doing? And showed them the flies and talked about fishing a little bit with them. And they said the wonderful thing about getting out and about and doing stuff like this, it may be they haven't got a fishing rod in their hands, but they're walking, and they said you just lose yourself. And it's really funny that I've just been talking about that, and Warren was saying, I've forgotten about my electricity bill, I've forgotten about all of these things, and we know this isn't anything new or groundbreaking, but it just sort of reinforces it when you're standing in somewhere really, really special with some friends and even strangers, that just for a few moments you've got something in common, the beauty of the outdoors and how we experience it. And we all experience it in different ways, I guess. And the fun aspect is just sitting down. We've had lunch. We somehow, at a farm shop, we've had a pasty to eat. We had some banoffee pie, and there's been a bit of a disaster in both cases, that we've been carrying them in our packs, and both of us took a tumble and fell on the banoffee pie that is a flattened version of it, or a pancake version of banoffee pie. But Warren, that was fun this morning, wasn't it?
Yes, lovely. I think there was the phrase mistakes and smashed cakes, which is pretty much describes our morning. We've had numerous hits on the flies, but most of them are not sticking. But it doesn't make it any less enjoyable. A lot of them are smaller fish, but yeah, the amazing amount of rises to the flies or takes to the flies this morning. Yeah, perfect.
And we were sort of saying that, you said something to me about what fishing does for us, and I know this is popular ground that a lot of people are talking about, the mental well-being, but you said something really interesting to me, that you said, I've got a fly rod in my hand, there's fish rising all over the place, and that's all I'm focused on. I'm just forgetting everything else.
I think the small stream, the boulders, the nature of the water we're fishing, I can honestly say when I'm in the water now, I'm not thinking about anything except the fly. I'm not even thinking about the cast I'm making or the rod I've got in my hand. I'm literally focused on that fly on the water. And it's unusual for your mind not to drift anywhere, but this morning, that's the sort of state I think I've been in, almost, nothing, not aware of anything else apart from that fly and the fish that's trying to take it, which is unusual, especially on the more sedate streams that I tend to fish back home. But you have to be concentrating on everything. in this sort of water. So my mind's not drifted at all until we've sat down for lunch, and then we're back to normal again, really.
And we're sitting on rocks that are covered in moss that are almost like armchairs. You could almost lay back. I've smoked a cigar, Warren smoked his pipe, and you could almost lay back and close your eyes. There's just the sound of the river and the sound of the wind blowing through. And you're sort of kind of the yin to my yang of, I'm a shambles with flies, leaders, that sort of stuff. Yet you were saying you didn't even think about the fly pattern you had on the leader. You were just enjoying the whole experience of just being out in the river and having a few fish eat the fly.
Yeah, I think that might come from the nature of the water we're fishing. It doesn't make a difference. It's not as imperative for your leader to be as you 100%, exact dimensions or turning over, because you're literally pinging a hairy fly into fast water. And I think it's right. I think it's fair enough to say the presentations doesn't have to be immaculate to get the take. So yeah, I'm probably not paying as much attention to detail, as I usually would. But that's what makes it more fun, I think.
I talked earlier as well about my cap and catching a fish wearing that, and I feel happier about that now. And there's also, I've managed to christen a rod this morning as well, which has been really, really enjoyable. And there's a wonderful little sideline story to this. And if you follow Warren on social media, you'll know what it is. But your fishing has taken a slightly different direction as well, hasn't it?
Yes, yeah, all a bit. Yeah, it's been on the back burner or slowly cooking away. But we finally got the first couple of builds out of the new workshop at home, out on the river, which is exciting. It's lovely. They're the first couple of rods that have come out, all finished and out on the river. And yeah, exciting times. I'm really pleased to see them out there and sort of trying to get some confidence and trying to build on that to give myself the confidence to get off the ground with this now and start building some rods. Yeah.
And I talked about your fastidious nature and how you look at things and how you approach things, and your career as an electrician as well lends itself incredibly importantly to being fastidious about it. And I know that you've spent a long period of time sort of restoring rods, making them good, learning your trade, spending a lot of time doing that, and then taking the plunge. What made you feel that you wanted to set up McCarthy Rodworks? Was that a difficult and long and well thought out process for you to go down that road?
It wasn't that long a process, but it was certainly thought out. It's all I've thought about for quite a long period of time. Do you know what? I think I know I spoke to you personally about this time and time. The biggest thing is the imposter syndrome about actually thinking that I've got the right, that I should be able to build rods for other people. And it's only the more I've been building and the more I've been looking at the stuff I've been doing and people saying, and you're doing well. And I'm thinking, do you know what? Maybe I can do this. And it's all been a bit crash bang. Well, an opportunity came up to purchase some blanks, and then I was thinking about building a workshop. So bizarrely, I had an old. Sorry, I'm mumbling on it. I had an old Vespa that's been sat in the garage for the best part of 3 or 4 years. That hasn't even come out from under the covers. That made space. We cleared out everything in the garage, and I've built myself a new workshop. And once I'd done that, I'd really forced my own arm. Look, come on now, you've done this. Now you've got to start building rods and getting them out there. So I've sort of pushed myself, but I've been lucky enough to have the support of certainly yourself, Tracy as well, to say, look, come on, why not give it a go? Just do it. Stop thinking about it and do it.
And what's your ethos behind this? Because you've bought the blanks, and I fish with one of them. I have one now, and I can't rate it highly enough, and I've really enjoyed fishing with it. And it's easy for me to blow smoke up your backside and say nice things because you're my friend, but you'd know that I'd tell you, look, this doesn't feel right. But it was kind of nice to be able to fish it, really enjoy fishing it. And when I know that I like a rod, I'm doing stuff, not fancy stuff, but it's the way that I handle it that I'm doing little flips and little pops into little pockets and seeing how that rod works. And it was pleasing for me to be able to do that and feeling immediately at home with a rod. Is that pleasing for you to see that? And is it, you're fishing one of the rods, and we'll talk about the models that we're fishing with in a moment, but was it nice to be able to do that, to play with them on the water and catch some fish with them as well?
Yeah, definitely. But I think this all started quite a long while back from starting restorations, really. I mean, the bamboo restorations. Do you know what? It started very long way back when I needed some alterations to a reel seat, and then new cork, which is the inevitable, the easy stuff that everybody can have a go at. And then I restored, as you know, a couple of older, one coarse rod actually, and then a fly rod. And then I thought, you know what? I think I can possibly do this. This is, I really enjoy it. And then my first glass build was for myself, obviously, and then another one for myself. And then it all started. I was working in a very tiny, small area that I'd given myself. Everything was wasn't quite right. And I think if you want to do it for other people, then everything needs to be in place to do it properly. And that was the big step for me, to make sure all that everything was there and I had the space and the room to do it, really.
And so now that we're doing it on the river, are you kind of pleased that you're seeing the work that you've put in come to life, as it were, on the river, and it's being used in real life situations? Has that been pleasing?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's very easy to post a picture of a fly rod on social media, or a picture of a whipping or a guide or a reel seat, but that, you and I know, the aesthetics are lovely, and it's a big part of the builds. I really enjoy that, but at the end of the day, it's got a purpose. It's got to cast a fly. It's got to do what the angler wants it to do. So far more important that it does what it's supposed to do, and the person that's using it, more importantly, enjoys using it to do that, than the aesthetics. But I think the aesthetics are obviously very important as well. But I think that to a degree they're the easier aspect for me. Making it look good is one thing, but it's no point having something that looks good that doesn't do what it's supposed to do.
And for me, it has done. And when we got here, Warren handed over the rod, and I'd had in my mind some lines that I was going to bring along, and I was going to try them. And first one I put on, I thought, wow, that's really nice. And that was a car park cast. And I try and keep those test casts at fishing distances, because it's always easy to rip out a load of line and then try and throw it as far as you can. But the rod performed really well, the recovery. And these are glass rods, and they're S-glass rods. And I've talked on here before in the past about years back being put off by fiberglass rods for so long. I tried some and it just put me off. Yet these modern tapers, the modern resins, the modern construction of the blanks makes them really usable, easy to cast, and a pleasure to fish with as well. And I often talk about the ability to play fish on a rod as well as its key role of getting the fly from A to B, but also playing fish, and glass just is fantastic for that. So I've really enjoyed it. But what are we fishing with today?
Like you say, these are both S-glass blanks, and I think the difference, sort of the main difference, is that they're certainly stiffer, faster. They're sort of a medium fast action. I would describe these blanks are, even throughout the range that I've got at the moment. Sorry, not my range, but the collection of blanks I've got ready to build. And I've got E-glass, I've got slower rods. I know you do as well. I enjoy the nuances and the eccentricity of the real slow rods, the old bamboo rods. Now, I personally enjoy that, but I think the trouble is with some of them, when you mention glass to some people, they automatically think, well, we've got a close friend who used the word licorice, for example. I know Mr. Jim Williams always uses the expression licorice. These really aren't. I think you'll agree with me. These are really quite crisp. They're really nice to cast, but at the same time, they just put a smile on your face. When you do hook fish, when you are playing fish, they do put a smile on your face. They are fun to use. They're serious, they're proper fishing tools, but they are fun, and I think they do put Me personally, I think they put a bit of a smile back on your face when I compare it with graphite. Is my personal opinion.
And my one is a 7'3" weight. It's got a 3-weight line on there. It's a Rio Gold, and it works beautifully in conjunction with that. I've been throwing some bigger dries, as I said, some of the ones that I bought when I was in Italy, and then it looked as though there were black gnat that the fish were on. So I tried, I think it was a parachute black gnat pattern, and then I've switched to an ant sort of pattern. Another one I bought from Stefano actually, and that's worked really well. It's got sort of a parachute, and the reason why it sort of sits almost like a clink hammer as well. It's very beautifully and cleverly tied fly, and I was wondering with some of the fish where they were just sort of splashing at the fly, and some of them are just so small that they can't eat the fly, so they're trying to drown the fly, whatever it might be, or whack it with their tail, whatever it might be with it. But I thought with sitting it a little bit deeper in the water, just a tiny bit, a slightly different angle, I might get a better chance. And certainly I'm still missing some, but my hookup rate has certainly improved. But you're fishing, what is that, a slightly shorter rod, isn't it?
Yeah, I need to explain the reason I'm fishing this. This was a rod that I built up just for a test with the guide spacings, and the real see the way I wanted these, because it's a 6'6" 2-weight. And I'll be honest with you, if you said you're going to size 14, heavy, hairy size 14 flies in the wind, in between the boulders, you wouldn't pick a 6'6" 2-weight to do it. But I'm trying to get to grips with this, test it, make sure I'm happy with the guide spacings. I really am. It's probably undergunned for what it's doing, but it's still doing the job. It's still pinging the flies out there. And quite remarkably, it's still turning the leader over and getting these flies out. But I have fished it earlier on in the week on a more sedate stream down south, with the 22 to 18 patterns, and it behaved beautifully there as well. So I'm chuffed to bits with this one. So yeah, this again S-class, but 6'6" 2-weight.
And your attention to detail as well with, we've been talking about spacings of rod rings and how they look comparable, how the blank has been performing as well. You must be very pleased having seen it, and I know, I put my rod in your hand and said, look, fish with it for a little bit. You must be pleased.
Yeah, it's lovely. It really is, really pleasing.
And that must be part of the process for you as well, mustn't it? Is figuring out what lines go best with the blanks and your finished rods, so that you can advise people as well what you feel is working best, so that their setup is complete and is going to perform the best for them and the fishing conditions they're about to face.
Absolutely. I think it's a fun part of any new fly rod, finding the right line that works for it. Some of the slower glass, the E-glass, some of the other glass that I've got, I tended to lean towards the bamboo and glass lines, the recommended glass and bamboo lines. But certainly I've threaded the same lines through these blanks, and these are certainly more suited to the small stream lines that you would usually put through graphite. I mean, I've got a Rio Creek on that, and it's a 2-weight line on a 2-weight rod, and it's just a perfect match. It's behaving beautifully. So as opposed to something like possibly a Cortland silk that you would usually associate with glass and bamboo. So yeah, it's definitely fun, and I definitely would like to get to know every blank I'm building better, so that you can recommend lines, because it's probably one of the first things you're going to get asked, what line do you put through it? So yeah, it is an important part of it. Yeah.
Nice. And we're going to go fish them again in a moment or two, but you're going to, for people listening, you're going to be doing rod repairs and restorations for bamboo rods. That's going to be something you're going to do, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Love that. The full bamboo build is on the back burner. Everything's in place. The tools, even the materials are there waiting. So that will happen. That is something I do want to do. But as regards to the bamboo restorations and the older rods, bringing them back to life, really enjoy that. Really, yeah, really, and it's lovely to see them back on the river, no matter how tired they were when they came to you. So yeah, that's something I really want to push as well. Yeah.
And for people, if they're interested in the glass rods, and as I said, I've got no vested interest other than Warren's my friend, but I know when he's going to do something, he does it properly. If you look at the flies that he ties, those sorts of things as well, they're very, very a great deal of attention to detail with those. So when the glass rods are going to be available, what are you going to be pitching them at?
The stock of small stream blanks I've got in on the shelf at the moment, ready to be built. They're going to be just under 300 quid. So we're pitching those in at that. It's all going to be high-end hardware, snake brand guides, agate stripping guides, and the reel seats. We're going to put high-end kit on them, but we're going to bring in just under 300 quid at the moment. Yeah.
As we've been saying with S-Glass as well, that the really, really nice thing about that is that it feels kind of familiar with a bit more feel, and so you can feel the blank bend, but it's also pretty straightforward to cast. If people want to go and find out a little bit more, if they want to connect with you, what is the easiest way? I know that you've been starting to put some pictures on the Instagram and other bits and pieces like that. Where can people find you?
It's early days at the moment, but certainly Facebook and Instagram. Instagram's warren.mccarthy718. I think, so there is a website on the way, fingers crossed. But say early days at the moment, social media, Instagram and Facebook at the moment, yeah.
Make sure you hit him up, have a look and give him a follow. As I said, it's easy for me to say because Warren's sitting next to me and he's a friend, but you know I'm bullshit free. I'm sitting fishing with one and I've had a fantastic day with it. And so I think you shouldn't feel imposter syndrome. I'm thrilled you've gone down this route and I wish you every success with it and hope people come search you out.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate that.
When you've been sitting down for a while talking, not fishing, you get up and it feels a little cooler, and it certainly is now. We both put our jackets on. Warren's just upstream of me, and I took my amp pattern off because I'd fished a few pools and it felt as though there was nothing going on. I thought, I wonder, shall I try this? Shall I try that? I'm really thrilled that I'm threading flies like a superstar today. I've only used my glasses once, so it's been great from that point of view. But Jay Lee, if you're listening, I thought, sod it, let's tie on a humpy. And I've tied on one of those, the old traditional deer hair, elk hair humpies with a yellow bottom. And it's sort of it's one of those everything and nothing sort of flies. And I've used it with a black bottom as almost like a terrestrial beetly type pattern in the past. And with the yellow in bigger sizes, I remember hitting an epic mayfly hatch that I just didn't have the right sort of pattern, but I had some big humpies that I'd used in the States previously and they worked as a mayfly pattern. They had the yellow underneath and they seemed to work well. Certainly on the tour system, they like that yellow to stand out on a mayfly pattern and they worked for me there. And I've just tied one on and I've had a few fish. So Jay, it's working as good as ever. It's such a great pattern, fun to fish. Reminds me of the US a little bit, but like I say, conditions have changed a little bit. That the sky is much heavier, the wind feels as though it's got a little bit more of a bite to it at the moment. The fish still got to eat and they're still happy to eat as well, so it's great from that point of view. And we're just walking up the river again, fishing pockets and pools that look as though they might just hold a fish, and it's been great. And Warren's far too modest. He's not around, so he's not going to hear this. He'll hear it, I guess, when he listens, but he's done such an amazing job with these rods. And again, you know, I'll always shout about things like this. He's just risen a fish there. He's away from me, but can't hear what I'm saying. He's just smiling as he just missed a fish that didn't stick. But he's put a lot of thought, heart and soul into it. And it's been a really long time for him to decide to go down this route, and I'm thrilled for him, and having fished the rod as well, I'm really thrilled about it. So I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying tying on a humpy and catching some fish, and the river's just skirting round to the left a little bit upstream, so I'm going to have a look there, see if there's a corner pool there, a little bit more depth. There's a tree just overhanging the river. You can probably still hear it in the background as well, but it feels pretty good. It's dropped back a fair bit from even when we got here this morning as well, and it's after sort of lunchtime. We're well into the afternoon now, and it's a different river, but yeah, feisty little fish still coming up to have a look at a fly. Find myself laughing out loud. Sometimes I land a fly in a spot, a fish explodes under it, the fly's probably too big for the fish. I flip it down there again, the fish has another go, but still doesn't stick. And then sometimes you'll land in a spot and the fish, you can see it come off the bottom and eat the fly, and you get a good hook up, and it's perhaps a slightly better fish, and that might be the reason. But yeah, I just laugh out loud. It's such fun and encompasses, I think, one of the reasons I love this so much. It is wild fish, good company, pretty little stream. I don't think I need a whole lot more. It makes it pretty special for me. Funny thing for me about all of this is that we read books to learn about where fish might be, what they might be feeding on, how to get to them, what spots they might be in. They don't do any of that, but I might be fishing anywhere in the world and I look for those telltale places, and no matter where it is, those fish seem to know the rules better than I do, and they're going to be in those places. And today's been a great example of that if you could land your fly where you felt was the right spot. And today the river's been up a little bit. It's generally been slacker flows, back eddies, places like that. And the fish know that, and that's where they're sitting. And if we know that as well and we can land our fly in there, then we're in with a shout. And that's been the great thing. I don't know how many that we've hooked. I don't know how many we've risen. I don't know how many we landed. I don't actually care. It doesn't matter. It's been much more than that. And we're starting to think about turning back now. But I've really enjoyed my new cap. That's been good news. The rod I've really enjoyed. And one of the things I should know, I'm from Essex, so I like bright stuff. But one of the things about glass rods as well is the colours that they come in. And we've got my rod. What colour is mine known as, Warren?
Ice blue. It's an ice blue blank. Yeah, and it really is ice blue as well. When I first saw these, I sort of took half a gasp, but then when I started looking at them closer, and then you said you really liked it, and we put silver hardware on it, and it does pop. It definitely pops. It's growing on me.
Well, I love it, and I know Tracy ordered one as well, so the two of us like them. And that's the great thing about glass as well. Like I say, the colours they come in. What sort of colours have you got?
We've got if you're more traditional, we've got the traditional olive, but there's the white, which is almost like a clear rather than a white. There's orange, there's the ice blue. Do you know what? The blanks are available in most colours you want, but I think and it is great fun to have these colours, but I think that, at the end of the day, they're serious fishing rods that do exactly what you want them to do, but they just put a smile on your face, in my humble opinion.
I think you're dead right about that. And one of the things about them is that it's sort of a nod to a bygone age, but with such a more modern twist in the way that how fishable. And you may be able to hear in the background the wind, and certainly for me that's been no issue, and I've been landing the fly exactly where I wanted to. I often talk about drag and drift. Here it doesn't matter so much, but I found doing a reach cast, it has allowed me to get across the river to those slack bits of water before the current grabs it, and it's worked perfectly from that point of view. And I've looked for those sort of places, and even it's interesting, some of the things, and you'll know that I love fishing bamboo as well, but when I do a series of wiggles in the cast, it's not quite as efficient. This I've been playing with. There's a nice long pool that we've been fishing and had some fish out of, and I've been playing with that a little bit. And yeah, to me, it feels sort of traditional with a contemporary colour scheme, yet with quick recovery. So, and we were talking at the end, and I said, I'm fishing it just like a normal graphite rod, but it feels, to me at least, just a little bit cooler and a little bit different. And with those, like you say, the ice blue colour, which you may have seen on Warren's Instagram, go and check it out because you'll see it on there. There's 2 of the rods on there that he's done. And I kind of like that. It's a little bit different. And that's, for me, refreshing, contemporary. And I think fly fishing always needs to look forward. It's nice to nod at the past and the traditions of the past, but also remembering and respecting those things, but also moving forward too. So we've made that long walk back. We're drinking some water. We're tired. We're happy. Today for me is the stuff I love. It's about fishing, what fishing means to me, and everything alongside that as well. And there's so many facets to fishing that appeal, make it interesting, and just keep me coming back time after time. I hope you've enjoyed this. This has been sort of really just random thoughts about fishing, what it means to me, some fishing, hanging out with a friend, trying to help a friend as well along the way in something that he believes in and something I believe in too. And I hope that comes across as well. I hope it hasn't come across as an advert. Of course, I want it to help my friend, but I want to do that because I believe what he's doing is good and it's high quality. So that's the reason behind that. But this has been another episode of the Fly Culture Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this one. It's been fun to record. I do like being outside. I like capturing my thoughts as I'm on the river, and I hope they've come across to you, and I hope you've enjoyed as much as I have. Thanks so much for listening to the Fly Culture Podcast.
The Fly Culture Podcast is brought to you in association with Fly Culture, a quarterly published magazine owned and run by fly anglers. When it comes to fly fishing, we've got you covered.